Khalil Johnson wasn't looking for trouble. He just wanted to learn. But from the moment he walked into Westfield Academy, it was clear the rules were different for kids like him. A top student with a scholarship, Khalil thought his brains could carry him through. But a teacher with a cruel smile and a hidden agenda had other plans. When she accused him of a crime he didn't commit and forced him to mop the classroom floor for laughs, the humiliation cut deep. What she didn't know was who Khalil's father really was, and what he was about to do next would shake the entire school. Quick check-in before we roll. Do you usually listen to these while relaxing, working, or maybe during your commute? Tell me how you tune in. This one's got a twist you won't see coming. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss stories like this. Khalil Johnson's hands trembled as he carefully arranged his notebooks on the desk. Westfield Academy's polished hallways and fancy classrooms still felt foreign to him after 3 months. The prestigious private school had accepted only 5 black students this year. Khalil had earned his spot through the Excellent Scholarship, awarded to the district's top-scoring student. Just keep your head down and do your work, his father had advised on his first day. Your brain is your ticket to anywhere you want to go. Khalil believed him. He always had. The classroom door swung open as Ms. Peterson strode in, her heels clicking sharply against the tile floor. Her eyes swept over the room, lingering on Khalil for a beat too long. His stomach tightened. Pop quiz today, she announced with a thin smile. Let's see who's been paying attention. When she placed the quiz on Khalil's desk, he noticed it had different questions than the papers on neighboring desks. His was noticeably harder. Again. During lunch, Khalil sat alone, picking at his sandwich. The weight of isolation pressed down on his shoulders. At his old school, he'd had friends respect. Here, he felt like an intruder. You're that scholarship kid, right? A white student named Tyler slid onto the bench across from him. Must be tough being the charity case. Khalil's cheeks burned, but he kept his eyes down. I earned my place here. Sure you did, Tyler laughed, walking away. That afternoon in Miss Peterson's class, Khalil raised his hand to answer a question about the Civil War. He knew this material cold. Yes, Khalil, Miss Peterson said with a sigh that suggested interruption. The Emancipation Proclamation initially only freed slaves in Confederate states because. That's not quite right, she cut him off, though it was exactly right. Anyone else? Tyler raised his hand and repeated almost exactly what Khalil had said. Excellent, Tyler. Perfect answer. Khalil's pencil snapped in his grip. He couldn't prove it, but he knew what was happening. The question was whether he could endure it long enough to make his father proud. What Khalil didn't know was that tomorrow, everything would change, and Miss Peterson would soon wish she'd never learned his name. The next morning, Ms. Peterson's face was tight with anger as she held up a textbook. Pages had been scribbled on with permanent marker. Crude drawings defaced George Washington's portrait. Who did this? Her eyes locked onto Khalil immediately. Khalil's heart pounded. It wasn't me, Miss Peterson. Your desk is closest to the bookshelf, she said, voice dripping with suspicion. And this happened during yesterday's lunch period. But I was in the cafeteria. Enough excuses. Miss Peterson slammed the book down. I've been watching you since you arrived, Khalil. Thinking you're special because of your scholarship. The room fell deadly silent. 24 pairs of eyes burned into him. I didn't do it, Khalil insisted, voice cracking. From the corner of his eye, he caught Tyler smirking. Suddenly, Khalil understood. Tyler had set him up. Since you enjoy special treatment so much, Miss Peterson said, walking to the supply closet, you can have a special job. She pulled out a mop and bucket. Clean the classroom. All of it. But, now, or I call the principal about vandalism. Khalil's legs felt wooden as he stood. Tears threatened, but he refused to let them fall. He took the mop with trembling hands. Look, everyone, Miss Peterson announced with a cruel smile. Our little janitor. Maybe this is more suited to your talents than academics. Laughter erupted around him. Someone whispered, guess he found his real scholarship program. As Khalil dragged the mop across the floor, Miss Peterson continued teaching as if nothing was wrong. But everything was wrong. The classroom blurred through his unshed tears. With each stroke of the mop, Khalil's humiliation burned deeper. He thought of his father's sacrifices to give him this opportunity. How could he tell him what school was really like? When the bell rang, everyone filed out, some intentionally scuffing their shoes on the clean floor. Miss Peterson left without acknowledging him. Alone in the classroom, Khalil finally let his tears fall. He pulled out his phone with shaking hands and did something he'd never done before. He called his father during work hours. "Dad," he whispered when the line connected. Something really bad happened. What Khalil didn't know was exactly who his father was about to become at Westfield Academy. Dr. Marcus Johnson's office went silent as Khalil described what happened. The walls, still bare from his recent move, seemed to close in as anger rose in his chest. "She made you do what?" Dr. Johnson asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "Clean the floors. Called me the janitor." Everyone laughed. Khalil's voice cracked. "Dad, I didn't vandalize that book." "I swear." "I believe you, son." Dr. Johnson pinched the bridge of his nose. Tomorrow was supposed to be his first official day as Westfield School District's new superintendent. He hadn't told Khalil yet, wanting to settle in first. Now his blood boiled at the perfect, terrible timing. "I want to pull you out," Khalil pleaded. "Please, Dad. I can't go back there." Dr. Johnson's first instinct was to storm into that school immediately. But 20 years in education had taught him when to be strategic rather than reactive. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "You will go back tomorrow." "Dad, no." "Yes, because you belong there. Your test scores proved it. Your brain earned that spot, not Ms. Peterson's approval." Khalil fell silent. "We're not running from this," Dr. Johnson continued. "But I need you to trust me. Can you be brave for just a few more days?" After a long pause, Khalil whispered, "Okay." After hanging up, Dr. Johnson called his assistant. "Janet, I need everything we have on a teacher named Peterson at Westfield Academy, and reschedule my introduction to the school board. I'll be making classroom visits first." That evening, Dr. Johnson held his son tightly before bed. "Dad," Khalil asked softly, "what would Mom have done?" The question pierced Dr. Johnson's heart. 3 years since cancer took her, and still these moments caught him unprepared. "She would have fought like hell for you," he answered honestly. "And that's exactly what I'm going to do." What neither of them realized was that Ms. Peterson had already decided Khalil needed another lesson tomorrow. She'd been teaching at Westfield for 20 years. No scholarship student was going to disrupt her classroom, especially not one who didn't belong there. The stage was set for a collision no one at Westfield Academy would ever forget. Khalil's steps echoed in the empty hallway. He'd arrived early, hoping to avoid the stairs. Yesterday's humiliation clung to him like a second skin. As he approached Miss Peterson's classroom, he heard voices inside. "I want that Johnson boy gone," Miss Peterson was saying. "He's disrupting the learning environment. These diversity scholarships are just asking for trouble." "Claire, you need to be careful," a male voice warned. "The new superintendent starts this week. We don't need controversy. Richer, please. I've taught here for 20 years. Who do you think they'll believe? Me or some boy who probably cheated on his entrance exams?" Khalil froze, a sick feeling spreading through his stomach. She wanted him gone, had planned to frame him all along. The conversation ended abruptly. Khalil ducked around the corner as Principal Whitaker exited. He waited until the hallway cleared before entering the classroom. Miss Peterson looked up with narrow eyes. "You're early. Eager to continue your janitorial duties." Khalil swallowed hard. "I came to talk about yesterday's incident." "I didn't vandalize that book." "Sit down, Khalil," she replied coldly. "Students like you always have excuses." "Students like me?" he echoed. "Scholarship cases who don't appreciate opportunities given to them." The classroom door opened as students began filing in. Tyler entered with his friends, smirking at Khalil. Throughout the morning, Ms. Peterson ignored Khalil's raised hand while calling on others who clearly didn't know the answers. When he finally spoke up without being called, she snapped. "That's it. Stand up, Khalil." She pointed to the floor. There's gum under these desks that needs cleaning. Since academics aren't your strength, perhaps custodial arts are. Laughter rippled through the room as she handed him rubber gloves from her desk. This time, something inside Khalil resisted. No, ma'am. The room went silent. Excuse me? Miss Peterson's face flushed. I'm a student, not a janitor, Khalil said, his voice shaking but determined. Before Miss Peterson could respond, the classroom door opened. A young black woman in a lab coat stepped in. Ms. Peterson, I'm Ms. Washington from the science department. I need to borrow. She trailed off, taking in the scene, Khalil standing, rubber gloves in his hands, Ms. Peterson's reddened face. What's happening here? Ms. Washington asked, her eyes moving between them. No one knew this unexpected witness would change everything, or that she had her own history with Ms. Peterson that was about to resurface at the worst possible time. Nothing that concerns you, Ms. Peterson said sharply. Khalil was just helping clean up. Ms. Washington's eyes narrowed. During class time, I'm handling a disciplinary issue, Ms. Peterson replied. Now, what did you need? Ms. Washington hesitated, then handed her a form. Field trip permission slips. Her eyes met Khalil's briefly. I'll come back later for them. After she left, Ms. Peterson's smile turned predatory. Where were we? Yes, the gum. Ms. Peterson, please. Khalil's voice wavered. This isn't right. One more word and you'll be explaining yourself to Principal Whitaker. The threat hung heavy. Khalil slowly knelt down, his cheeks burning with shame as he scraped gum from beneath desks while classmates whispered and snickered. Later, at lunch, Khalil sat alone until a shadow fell across his table. Mind if I join you? Ms. Washington asked, setting down her tray. Khalil shrugged. Teachers never sat with students. That wasn't right. What happened in class? She said quietly. Khalil stared at his untouched sandwich. Doesn't matter. Nobody cares. I care. Ms. Washington leaned forward. 7 years ago, I was a student teacher under Ms. Peterson. I saw how she treated certain students differently. Why doesn't anyone stop her? Because she has tenure and friends on the school board. Ms. Washington's eyes flashed with determination. But that doesn't make it okay. After school, Ms. Washington marched into Ms. Peterson's empty classroom. We need to talk about Khalil Johnson. Ms. Peterson barely looked up from her grading. That boy is disruptive and disrespectful. He's being singled out and humiliated, Ms. Washington countered. And I won't stand by watching it happen. Ms. Peterson's pen stopped moving. Careful, Jasmine. Your contract renewal comes up this spring. Are you threatening me? I'm reminding you of your place, Ms. Peterson stood. I've taught here for 20 years. You've been here, too? Challenge me and see who the board believes. This isn't over, Ms. Washington promised, walking out. Meanwhile, Khalil trudged home, his backpack heavy with more than just books. When he opened his front door, he found his father waiting. How was school? Dr. Johnson asked carefully. Khalil's composure finally broke. Tears streamed down his face as everything poured out. The gum, Ms. Washington's intervention, Ms. Peterson's escalating cruelty. Dr. Johnson's expression hardened into resolve. It stops tomorrow, he promised, pulling out his phone. I'm done waiting. What Khalil didn't know was that his father had already gathered evidence that would shake Westfield Academy to its core. Khalil couldn't sleep. Tomorrow loomed like a shadow over his bed. More humiliation. More silent stares. He buried his face in his pillow, muffling a scream of frustration. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Ms. Washington. Your father asked for my number. Stay strong. Things are about to change. Across town, Dr. Johnson spread documents across his kitchen table. Student complaint records, testing statistics, performance evaluations, all showing a pattern of discrimination in Ms. Peterson's classroom spanning years. His phone rang. Principal Whitaker. Dr. Johnson, excited for your first official day tomorrow? The board is eager to meet our new superintendent. Actually, Richard, I'm making a change to the schedule. I'll be conducting classroom observations first, starting with Ms. Peterson's class. Silence stretched across the line. Any particular reason? Whitaker finally asked. Best practices. I like to see teachers in action before ceremonial introductions. After hanging up, Dr. Johnson stared at his son's school photo. We're ending this, Marie, he whispered to his late wife's memory. Morning arrived too quickly. Khalil entered Ms. Peterson's classroom to find her unusually cheerful. Class, we have exciting news. The new district superintendent is visiting today. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. I expect perfect behavior. Khalil's stomach dropped. His father hadn't mentioned this. Miss Peterson continued, Khalil, since you've had trouble focusing lately, move your desk to the front row. Humiliation disguised as help. Classic. As students settled in, Miss Peterson approached Khalil. The superintendent will judge this school based on what he sees today, she whispered. One disruption from you, and I'll ensure your scholarship gets reviewed. The classroom door opened. Principal Whitaker entered, followed by a tall black man in a suit. Class, this is Dr. Marcus Johnson, our new district superintendent. Khalil's eyes widened. His father stood at the front of the room, looking every bit the authority figure. Miss Peterson's smile faltered slightly as she extended her hand. Welcome to Westfield, Dr. Johnson. We're honored to have you observe our classroom. Dr. Johnson shook her hand firmly. I've heard so much about your teaching methods, Miss Peterson. I'm eager to see them firsthand. His eyes briefly met Khalil's, giving nothing away. Please proceed normally, Dr. Johnson continued, taking a seat in the back. Pretend I'm not even here. Miss Peterson turned to the class with renewed energy. Today's lesson continues our history unit. Khalil, since you're seated up front, please read the first paragraph. As Khalil began reading, Miss Peterson interrupted, louder please, and try to pronounce the words correctly. Dr. Johnson's pen moved across his notepad. The trap was set, and Miss Peterson was walking straight into it, unaware that tomorrow's school assembly would become the most shocking moment in Westfield Academy's history. Miss Peterson's performance grew more exaggerated as the class progressed. She praised white students for basic answers while criticizing Khalil's thoughtful responses. That's not quite right, Khalil, she said after he correctly identified causes of the Civil War. Tyler, can you help him understand? Tyler repeated Khalil's answer almost verbatim. Excellent, Tyler. That's A-level thinking. From the back of the room, Dr. Johnson's pen scratched steadily across his notepad. His face remained professionally neutral, but his knuckles whitened around his pen. When Khalil raised his hand again, Miss Peterson sighed dramatically. Let's give others a chance, shall we? We can't always accommodate one student's need for attention. During group work, she approached Dr. Johnson. Scholarship students often struggle to adjust, she whispered. Khalil needs extra structure. Sometimes tough love is necessary. Dr. Johnson nodded thoughtfully. How many scholarship students have you taught, Miss Peterson? Oh, dozens over my career. They require special handling. Fascinating. I'd love to see your documented strategies. Perhaps we could review them with the board. Miss Peterson's smile tightened. Of course. As class ended, Miss Peterson called out, Khalil, please stay behind to clean up these papers. Dr. Johnson stood. Actually, Miss Peterson, I'd like Khalil to join me. Principal Whitaker mentioned he's one of our scholarship recipients. I'm meeting with all of them today. For a moment, panic flashed across Miss Peterson's face before she recovered. Of course, Dr. Johnson. He's all yours. In the empty hallway, father and son finally faced each other. You didn't tell me, Khalil whispered. I couldn't. I needed to see it myself. Dr. Johnson's professional facade cracked. I'm so sorry, son. What happens now? Now we prepare for tomorrow's assembly. Dr. Johnson's eyes held a fierce determination. I've already spoken with Ms. Washington and several former students. The board has reviewed my evidence. Later that afternoon, Ms. Peterson received an email requiring her attendance at tomorrow's assembly. The subject line read simply, Addressing Standards of Excellence. That evening, Dr. Johnson helped Khalil prepare what would become the most important speech of his young life. Are you sure I should do this? Khalil asked nervously. This isn't just about punishment, son. It's about changing the system. Dr. Johnson placed his hands on Khalil's shoulders. Your voice matters. Let them hear it. As Khalil practiced his speech, across town Miss Peterson prepared her own remarks, unaware she was walking into a reckoning decades in the making. The stage was set for a confrontation that would permanently alter Westfield Academy's future, and Khalil would be at its center. The assembly hall buzzed with whispers. Students filed in, noticing the unusual presence of board members seated in the front row. Principal Whitaker paced nervously by the podium. Khalil sat backstage, heart hammering against his ribs. Ms. Washington gave his shoulder a reassuring squeeze. "You've got this," she whispered. "Your father changed the schedule. You're speaking right after him." Ms. Peterson entered the hall, spotting Khalil backstage. Her eyes narrowed suspiciously. "What's happening here?" she demanded. Before anyone could answer, Principal Whitaker's voice echoed through the speakers. "Please welcome our new district superintendent, Dr. Marcus Johnson." The audience applauded as Dr. Johnson approached the podium with measured steps. "Thank you, Principal Whitaker. I spent my first unofficial days not in meetings, but in your classrooms, observing the education your children receive." His eyes scanned the crowd. "What I witnessed disturbed me deeply. In one classroom, I observed blatant discrimination, humiliation, and educational malpractice." Murmurs rippled through the audience. "At Westfield Academy, we pride ourselves on excellence," Dr. Johnson continued. "But excellence cannot exist alongside prejudice. It cannot thrive where some students are elevated while others are literally forced to clean floors as punishment." Gasps echoed through the hall. All eyes turned to Ms. Peterson, whose face had drained of color. "Ms. Claire Peterson," Dr. Johnson's voice hardened. "Please join me on stage." The silence was deafening as Ms. Peterson slowly walked forward. "For 20 years, you've taught at this academy. And for 20 years, according to records I've reviewed, students of color under your instruction have received disproportionately lower grades, higher disciplinary actions, and fewer recommendations for advanced placement." Ms. Peterson stepped to the microphone. "These accusations are absurd. I've dedicated my life to education, including making my son clean gum from under desks while you taught." Dr. Johnson asked quietly. The audience erupted in shocked whispers. "Your son." Ms. Peterson's face went ash white. "Khalil Johnson. The student you called janitor and humiliated repeatedly." Understanding dawned across hundreds of faces. Ms. Peterson grabbed the podium for support. "I'd like to introduce someone else," Dr. Johnson said. "Khalil." Khalil walked onto the stage, legs trembling but chin high. "My name is Khalil Johnson." His voice rang clear through the hall. "I earned my place at this school. My test scores rank highest in the district. I am not a charity case. I am not a janitor. I am a student who deserves respect." The assembly hall erupted in applause. In the front row, board members nodded grimly. Miss Peterson's world collapsed around her as she realized the magnitude of what had happened. The student she tormented wasn't just any scholarship kid. He was the superintendent's son, and he was about to change everything. 6 months later, Khalil walked confidently through Westfield Academy's halls. Colorful banners announcing the Excellence Through Inclusion initiative hung from the ceiling, a program he had helped create. He pushed open the door to what had once been Ms. Peterson's classroom. Ms. Washington looked up from her desk with a smile. "Right on time, Mr. President." After the assembly, the changes had come swiftly. Ms. Peterson was placed on administrative leave pending an investigation that uncovered decades of discriminatory practices. She ultimately resigned rather than face a public hearing. Ms. Washington was appointed to fill the position, bringing fresh approaches to the curriculum that celebrated diverse perspectives. Principal Whitaker, after a stern warning, had become an unexpected ally in implementing new anti-bias training for all staff. But the most significant change was the Student-Led Equity Council, with Khalil elected as its first president. "Is everyone ready for the meeting?" Khalil asked, setting his backpack down. The classroom filled with students of all backgrounds, including Tyler, whose uncomfortable awakening had transformed him into one of Khalil's strongest supporters. "Today's agenda includes our mentorship program proposals," Khalil announced. After the council meeting, Dr. Johnson was waiting outside. "How'd it go?" he asked as they walked to the car. "Great. The board approved our peer mentoring program. New scholarship students will have student guides next year." Dr. Johnson smiled proudly. "Your mother would be amazed by what you've accomplished." At home, Khalil paused before a photo of his mother on the mantle. "Dad, remember when Ms. Peterson made me clean the classroom? Hard to forget. That day, I felt so small. Like I was nothing." Khalil's voice strengthened. "But now I understand she was the small one. Her world was so limited she couldn't see past her own prejudice." Dr. Johnson nodded. "Some people build themselves up by pushing others down. The weird thing is," Khalil said thoughtfully, "I'm almost grateful it happened. Not the humiliation part, but what came after. Now other kids won't have to go through that." The doorbell rang. Ms. Washington had arrived for dinner, a weekly tradition since the changes at Westfield. As they gathered around the table, Khalil realized that the worst day of his life had ultimately created the best version of his school. And somewhere across town, former teacher Claire Peterson was learning a painful lesson in humility, having taken the only job she could find as a night janitor at the community college. Karma, it seemed, had a perfect sense of poetic justice. That brings the story to a close. Do you think Ms. Peterson got what she deserved in the end? Let's talk about it down in the comments. You're clearly into deep stories, so subscribe. You're not finding this kind of drama anywhere else. Keep the emotion rolling and click to watch another.